What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Nourish with Renata podcast. So today we are doing something really fun, and I am so honored to be able to introduce you to one of the people that I have coached with for, I think, the longest amount of time ever. She's been through such an incredible transformation, physically, mentally, emotionally, all the things. And I would like to say that we've become really awesome friends as well, because we've known each other for so long and we've seen each other through so many amazing things in our lives. So today I'm thrilled to introduce to you Jaki. How's it going?
Hi, how are you?
So good. So Jaki, I want you to give you the floor first and foremost, because I want people to get to know you, what it is that you do. And then we're going to go into a little bit about why you wanted to start coaching in the first place.
Okay. So, the who I am is not who I started out with when we first started working together. So now I am an entrepreneur. My husband and I have a media and clothing line. We do a lot of reviews on firearms. We each have our own, you know, personas online for like this largely growing gun community. And I did dabble in like some like fitness for a small time, thanks to you. It did not start out that way. It was, I work firearms retail, which I'm still at the same job I was when I started working with you. I just was able to kind of dive into my passions quite a bit more since then.
Yeah, definitely. And so we're going to get into that. But first, we got to talk about how we first met, as well as why you decided to do nutrition and fitness coaching in the first place. And this was over 5 years ago. So this is a long time ago. And we've continued ever since. So share with me a little bit about why you wanted to do fitness and nutrition coaching in the first place.
So I struggled with like fluctuating and increasing weight throughout my adult life. I reached my heaviest point around the time that I met you. And I was introduced to you, my husband, and you had a mutual friend who introduced us. And I was very resistant on actually starting coaching. I've never worked with a personal trainer at a gym, a nutritionalist, fitness coach, mindset coach, anything. I've never worked with anyone before. I was very much in the mindset that I can do this myself. And it was something that my husband and I both struggled with. After he introduced us, and he's the one who convinced me to just do one session, you know, meet them, just do one session, see how it goes. And the challenges that I was given, the tasks that I was given when I completed them, I felt so amazing and empowered because I not only proved to myself, I was able to prove it to somebody else as well, and not just to my husband.
Yeah.
So it made me feel so good to have like jumped over a hurdle that I thought was never possible with just such a small, simple task. And it was like crack. I just needed more.
Yeah, and I want to be clear, we were not giving her crack. It just felt like it. But really what I want to point out is that you jumped over a lot of hurdles just to even start coaching, just to come to that first session. And I think that's something that a lot of people will resonate with, because it is a leap. It is a leap to think like, oh, well, no, I can do this myself. And then you struggle and continue to feel the challenge of, for instance, like you mentioned, weight loss. And also I know because of our journey together, there had been some injuries, there was some pain associated, and that had also inhibited your confidence level, which is why you felt like it was even more of a leap to be able to do these tasks, because you had to be confident in yourself in order to do them.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. That's very accurate.
So we started off doing this nutrition coaching together. And in those early days, it was a lot of leaps. It was a lot of challenges that you were overcoming. And like you said, it was addictive because you were proving to yourself that you could do it. And you're coming to our accountability calls every week saying what you had accomplished. What do you think was the hardest thing that you did in those early days?
I think that video is probably the hardest thing I've ever done. I I've I've always wanted to have like a YouTube channel and educate people. And I could never bring myself to, even alone in a room with nobody watching, I could never bring myself to recording and not like getting sick to my stomach and getting like so nervous. Like I'm in a room by myself. Nobody's ever gonna even see this. And it was just making me an absolute nervous wreck. So my very first challenge from you guys was to create a video talking about who I was and what I wanted to get out of this coaching,
Yeah.
and then send it to you guys.
Yeah. Do you remember what you said in the video?
I I don't remember all of what I said. I know it was like the most embarrassing to watch again because I was, you could hear like my voice trembling and I couldn't keep eye contact with the camera, and it was just like it was incredibly awkward to go back and look at even a couple of months later.
Yeah.
Just about like what I wanted to get out of it. And like you had mentioned that, I had an injury, so my back injury, I was actually hospitalized for about 6 months before that meeting where we met for the first time.
Yeah.
So I was, I had recovered from it for the most part, but I was still struggling. I had like very little strength in my core or my low back to help get me into where I could work out regularly. So that the physical part was a challenge. I know I talked about that in my video, which made me emotional and didn't help at all with being nervous about making a video, period.
Right.
Um, it was very nerve wracking, but now I can get on camera like
And that's
super
huge.
easily. I mean, that
Yeah.
one challenge was very eye opening, and it had nothing to do with, eating the right foods and doing my workouts. And it was all about how strong I could be mentally just by doing one small thing.
Definitely. Yeah. And I love that you point that out because sometimes, and I'm sure for many people listening, they'll be like, well, what does that have to do with nutrition? What does it have to do with your health? Sometimes you just need to do something out of the box to show yourself you are capable of so much more than you ever thought you could do. And
Yeah.
that's how you did it.
Yeah.
So now it's been many, many years later, and we've continued to work together. We meet almost every single week to talk about your goals. And I'm really curious to hear, why did you want to continue working with me?
I feel like the accountability is a very large portion of it. Um, I even like occasionally hear my husband from across the room, what would Renata do? And I'm like, yeah, yeah, I get it. Have the protein shake instead of the cookie. Do it. So just like knowing that I have someone to be accountable for the decisions that I'm making. You know, I have to answer for my crimes, essentially. Um, and all of the help that you've given me over the years, your opinion, it weighs a lot on me in the decisions that I do make. So I thank you for that. I don't ever want to, disappoint the person that's put in so much time with me.
Yeah. And like you said, accountability is a huge piece of it. And I think that's why it's been so effective too. Obviously, right at the beginning, you were thinking, okay, I could just do this myself. But you also recognize that you couldn't be accountable to yourself yet at that point. And I want to really acknowledge you because now you've begun that process and are really, really quite a long way through the process of knowing that you can be accountable to yourself too. So it's building up this habit and this trust within yourself that when you say you're going to do something, you're really going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of accountability involved in it. And I would say another good portion is that there's, as much as I've been through and I feel like, oh, I could, I've seen a lot of struggles and worked my way through those struggles. There's still some things that I never thought to do to overcome something.
Mm.
So the perspective, the ideas for going forward to correct something that I may not have done very well at in the last week, and how we can kind of turn the tide a little bit so that I'm in control and I can do better on whatever it was I failed at last week in this upcoming week.
Right.
I feel like just someone else giving that little that little angel on the shoulder that says, hey, this might be a good idea, and you're like, oh my god, that's a great idea.
That's awesome. And I love being able to provide that for you as well, because sometimes we get so much in our heads that we don't even realize that we're counting out all these other potential perspectives that can actually help us to move forward instead of beating ourselves up that we didn't do something.
Yeah.
So in recent weeks, months, what's been one of the other biggest challenges that you feel like you've been able to overcome throughout coaching?
I think one of the biggest things, as my back has, still been an issue, is how to be my best mentally. So like I've been doing my affirmations a lot more. I've been working on my body in a soft way, because throughout like the back injury process, while I did lose a lot of weight that first year that we worked together, I lost 60 pounds that year. That was huge. But it's not something that with my back that over time that intensity could last through. So we had to find different ways of me working out, different ways of me moving my body and recovering with my body, working on my mobility, working on my flexibility, my strength in my core, things like that, that are actually going to benefit me and not just a cookie cutter, oh, you need to go to the gym and lift weights for 2 hours. And you need to do cardio for 3 hours. And you need to, like, my body can't handle that. So we need to kind of tailor what I do for my body to my body.
Exactly.
Because it's not the same as your body or someone else's.
Definitely. And that's what I think is one of the best things about working with a coach is that it's not cookie cutter. Like we get to think about what fits in with your lifestyle, not trying to make you fit into something else that really doesn't work for your work hours, your family life, all these other things too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So we also need to talk about structure because I think this is one of the best things that we do. We look at the year ahead and we come up with goals for every quarter. So I'd love to get your feedback on this structure that we've created because I feel very positive about it. And I think it helps to keep us both on track. So what do you think about this kind of yearly look?
So I absolutely love the structure. I'm a huge like checklist person and like, looking at like mile markers, like, oh, I should be here at this point. I should be here at this point. Having my yearly goal and then breaking it down into quarterly goals and doing like monthly check-ins within that quarter is a great way of making sure that, after 51 weeks, I'm not going, oh, that's right, I need to do everything before the end of the year.
Exactly. So we do check-ins every quarter, but in addition to that, I also want to point out one thing that you mentioned to me this morning, because we did have our coaching call prior to this, and it was your weight loss from basically the end of last year till now, and we're recording right now in March of 24. And so because we are focused on health, one of your particular goals that you had set out for yourself was a weight loss goal. And then do you want to share how much weight you've lost just this year alone?
I am down 9 pounds.
Oh, yeah. So good. And in addition to that, I also want to acknowledge you because you're so focused on your macro split. So for anyone that doesn't understand that, that just means understanding how much protein, fats, and carbohydrates you're consuming on a daily basis. You're really focused on that. You're really focused on your calorie goals. And this is something that we speak about every week, not necessarily because we're trying to overanalyze it or to make you feel a certain way about it, but it's really to help you to achieve whatever your goal is that we've set out at the beginning of the year.
Yeah. I feel like the weekly check-in with that, because that is like my highest priority goal, it just really helps me to keep it in the forefront of my mind daily. So the decisions that I make, like, oh, I could eat like this and that, and like it's not that big of a deal when I look at what I've done throughout the year and have like a daily accountability as I'm checking in with myself.
Yes,
It just keeps it in the forefront of my mind because it's something we discuss every single week because it's a priority goal.
it is. And I also want to point out that we're not being rigid with this. We have built in flexibility into your weekly plan. So do you want to talk about that?
I have an overage day. It's almost always pizza.
Right, because pizza is joy.
Pizza is life. But yeah, the having the flexibility of having an overage day and having like a window essentially on my other macros is really helpful because I can I know that if I set it incredibly strict, I am going to be miserable.
Yeah.
I have to have that flexibility where, my chosen day of the week is almost always whatever night we decide to do pizza. So I get to choose whatever that over day is. Or if it ends up being lasagna, it's always some sort of Italian.
Right.
But having that ability to not deprive myself of my absolute favorite thing once a week is the thing that keeps me going and looking forward to whatever day next week we happen to do pizza or lasagna.
Yeah, and that's a huge part of it. And I think something that so many people worry about, which is why they don't begin whatever health goal they have, because they think literally that means I can never have pizza, I can never have lasagna again, or ice cream, or burgers, or whatever your favorite food might be. And definitely in this case, we've worked it into the schedule. We make sure that there's time and a place to be able to eat your favorite foods.
Yeah. And even on the other days, that aren't my overage days, like last night, I was good on most of my other macros and I was able to have a shortbread cookie.
Yeah, which is delicious.
And it
I mean, and we
still
want you
allowed
to be
me to stay
happy.
under calorie and it still allowed me to be very close on all my other goals within my window. So I don't ever feel um, deprived, I guess,
Yes.
because I can still allow to have those little things and, down 9 pounds and still being able to have like, you know, a few of my gummy bears or a shortbread cookie or my one overage day a week and
Yeah.
still be able to be down 9 pounds since, Christmas essentially.
Yeah. And not have to, like you said, be slugging it in the gym for multiple hours a day. So this is all
Right.
mostly due to, number one, being really mindful about the foods that you're consuming, and number two, working in movement where you're able to, given obviously the back, sometimes being triggered, sometimes being flared up, but also mostly working on rehabilitation as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so we've talked a lot about aesthetics. We've talked about weight loss and different things like that, which I think a lot of people will have loved that. And we also got to talk about the internal health aspect too. So I want to talk about gut health because this has been a huge area that you've made massive improvements on. So do you want to share a little bit about where you started off with, perhaps with like fiber intake versus where you're at now?
Oh my gosh, what fiber? It was really bad. Um, so like obviously it makes things work right internally. And when it doesn't, you just get, you're constipated and you're bloated and you're miserable and you feel sluggish because you're constipated. Which, leads to this like low energy. I don't want to go out and like work out or do something if I'm feeling this way. So like my overall energy levels, I feel like improved greatly when my gut health started improving,
Yeah.
without the use of like over caffeinating.
Also that, yes.
Once I think everything started, like I would say in the last like what 4 or 5 months, I've been like really tight on like my fiber and my water intake working together to make sure that everything is working really solid together. Prior to really focusing on that, it was a struggle. I mean, I would get like too detailed, but maybe 2 or 3 times a week I
Yeah,
would go, and that's it.
right. Yeah.
So I mean, now I'm like every day.
Every day, which is amazing because what we also noticed, and obviously regular bowel movements is really important, but we also noticed that when you were constipated and had issues with your gut health, it was exacerbating your back pain too.
Yeah.
So we were doing lots of things to help to alleviate that pain. Once again, talking about helping your back to heal, and we noticed that this was a strong correlation with your gut health. Hence why you're so focused on fiber. And what's really awesome is that you know so much more about your body now that even if we do have a week where fiber intake might be a little bit lower than normal, you're compensating for that. We're looking for all the different ways you can add fiber and making sure your water intake is sufficient to help everything move through the system well.
Yeah, I'd say the water and fiber is probably like that was the biggest hurdle for me in improving my gut health.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's as simple as like finding those water enhancers that like flavor up your water. There's like a mango pineapple one, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how did I drink 148 ounces of water today? Well, it's because I found a new favorite thing to kind of like switch up why I'm drinking my water.
Yeah. And the flavor is a huge bonus. I mean, it just makes you feel really good. It makes it easier to drink water. So that's a really good tip for people if they're finding they cannot hit their water goals on a daily basis. Awesome. Okay. So the last thing I want to touch upon in terms of internal health, just really briefly, and we don't have to go into a lot of detail, is just around your menstrual cycle health. So women's health specifically, because that is something that a lot of women struggle with. And it was something that we started to talk about just so that you had an understanding of the different phases of your cycle, so that we could really look at nutrient timing, adding in more rest, that kind of thing into the full month of the cycle. So, how did that come across to you? Did you enjoy learning about it? What were your big takeaways?
I really did enjoy learning about it. I think it's probably been a little over 2 years that we've been really focusing on that. I didn't realize, like, I thought it was, bleed phase, and then you have the whole
Everything
rest of the
else.
month and everything's the
Yeah.
same. And it is not the same. And there's like a window where like you have more energy, and there's a window where you have like more like creativity, and there's a window where you have like really low energy. Like there's like so many different phases to your month, and understanding what suits you best to be doing in that time to make the most of it, or what you need to be doing to recover and prep for the next phase.
Exactly. And one of the things that we
Huge.
often would talk about is, for instance, because you really enjoy intermittent fasting for longer periods of time. So it was really about, okay, how can I figure out how long to intermittent fast based upon each of the phases of my cycle? So that was an important piece too, because if we found that we extended an intermittent fasting period, it would be a detriment to your energy levels moving into the next phase. So that was another really important piece that we started to integrate.
Yeah, I like that it was pointed out to me. I was like, I don't understand why I am like, normally I can fast from, you know, all this whole 16, 17, 18 hours, and I can't seem to stop eating.
Yeah.
Like I'm so hungry, like 2 hours before my eating window. And it wasn't until we really dug into why and what my body's doing as to why I am hungrier earlier, why I am like super thirsty during some portions of it.
Yeah. And the other thing that I will mention is that we were able to find a correlation between some months and your menstruation phase and increased back pain. So that was also really important to consider, in terms of a person as a whole. Sometimes when we think about health, it's just like, no, it's just about what food I'm putting into my body. But we also need to think about gut health. We need to think about hormonal health and bring all those things together in order to help you to live your healthiest and happiest life.
Yeah, there was a large spike at the same point of my cycle every single month where I had like intense back pain. And it was when we had hit that realization a couple years ago. It was like the biggest change in my back health that I've ever gone through, because I was able to actually have that conversation with my gynecologist and find out what we can do about it. And I mean, I wouldn't have even thought that the back pain would have been associated with that if not for logging and making notes. I had a back pain journal,
Yeah.
and it seemed every time my back pain had gone out, it was during the exact same cycle, the exact same phase in my cycle. So it was
Yeah.
the record keeping and the notes that I made, the journaling that I did per your suggestion was probably the only reason I'm not like in pain all the time.
Yeah. And you've come such a long way in terms of healing your back, healing your gut, your hormones are way more balanced now. Basically, you're winning at life.
I feel like it.
Okay, so my last question, and thank you so much for covering such a lot about your journey. It's hard to fit 5 years into a podcast, but I love that we've been able to touch upon so many important topics. So, my last question for you is, what would be your words of wisdom for someone who's thinking about doing coaching? So, going all the way back to when it was you at that beginner stage, thinking about taking that leap, what words of wisdom would you share with a woman today?
Do not ever be afraid to ask for help.
That's beautiful. And it's such a huge part of the work that we do together literally every single week, because it's like you come in with a question, a comment, or a concern, and we figure out a way to help you to achieve whatever goal it is or find a solution for whatever problem you might be facing.
Yeah. And be patient with your body.
Yes. Love that. Because we always think, okay, like we need to have a result tomorrow or today, right? And
Right.
you're a huge testament to how our bodies can shift and change over many years, how your priorities change, and also how it's not necessarily about just a number on a scale. It's about your whole life and creating an environment inside and out that helps you to achieve whatever goals you have set forth.
Yeah. I feel like even though the number on my scale has gone up, I'm in better health now than when I was about 10 pounds lighter. Just
That is amazing.
gut health, my mental health, everything is, I'm in a better place now.
Yeah.
That scale is not the boss of me.
Right. It's just one, like we always talk about, it's just one metric for success. And there's so many others. And I just have to send you one more kudos because you're like the best start to my week. To be able to see you at 8 a.m. on a Monday, making it out of bed early to see me. But it's always so great because you're focused, you're committed, and you're always ready to take the next step. Even though it might be a little bit scary, you're still so awesome at being able to forge forwards and to really understand how much more you can do in this life.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Okay, so Jaki, how can people get a hold of you if they want to connect with you further?
You can reach me on Instagram at the Gat Girl. It's the.gat.girl. That's where I'm most active. I'm on Facebook as well.
Yeah, and
Jaki
then
Sallis.
also we need to shout out Laugh and Load, which is the company that you have with your husband Tony.
Yes. Yeah,
And
I'm
how can
on
people,
that Instagram as well quite a bit. It's at Laugh and Load, LAUGHNLOAD.
and also on YouTube, they have some really great videos and reels on there too.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here and sharing part of your story, your journey with everybody. I know it will be inspiring for so many to be able to hear how far you've come and also how you're continuing to inspire yourself and others around you. Like we didn't even get into the ripple effect of how your health journey has impacted others. That is another beautiful story to share at another time. But in the meantime, thank you so much for being here. It's always a pleasure to see you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, guys, we'll see you in the next episode of the Nourish with Renata podcast. Make sure to share this episode out on your social media or with someone that you love. We'll see you soon.